The forest floor was a tapestry of damp earth and decaying leaves, muffling the sound of her boots as she moved. The scent of pine and rich soil filled the crisp night air, familiar and comforting, yet today it felt like the prelude to a scream. Lyra, cloaked in shadows, moved with the silent grace of a phantom, each step precise, each breath controlled. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight braid, practical and unforgiving, much like the life she had been forged into. Her hands, despite their deceptive delicacy, were calloused, strong, and accustomed to the cold bite of steel. Tonight they held not comfort, but a lethal purpose. Her heart, usually a steady drum within her chest, was a frantic hummingbird, fluttering against her ribs with an intensity that threatened to betray her. It wasn't fear of discovery, not truly. It was the crushing weight of destiny and duty colliding with the force of a supernova. Tonight was the night of the gathering of the Silver Crescent, a rare convocation of the dominant werewolf packs in the region, held once every decade to reaffirm alliances, settle disputes, and introduce the next generation of alphas. It was a time of celebration, of heightened senses under the waxing moon, of the joyous anticipation of finding one's fated mate. For Lyra, it was the culmination of a lifelong mission, a meticulously planned assassination. Her target, Jaxson, the newly ascended alpha of the formidable Moonwood Pack. He was known for his strength, his sharp mind, and his unwavering loyalty to his people. He was everything an alpha should be, everything her intelligence had meticulously detailed. And he was the one she was born to love, and the one she was trained to kill. Lyra, you see, was an assassin of the Shadow Pack, a rogue collective existing on the fringes of traditional werewolf society. They were a hidden sect, their existence whispered in hushed tones, feared and reviled by the established packs. Their purpose was singular: to destabilize, to eliminate, to reshape the balance of power through clandestine means. And Lyra was their most prized weapon, honed since childhood, stripped of weakness, imbued with a singular focus on her missions. Her current mission: infiltrate the Moonwood Pack, gain trust, and eliminate their alpha. The timing of the gathering was perfect, a chance to get close without suspicion, amidst the chaos and camaraderie. She positioned herself on a high bluff overlooking the main clearing where the Moonwood Pack, along with several visiting delegations, had gathered. Below, the clearing glowed with the light of numerous bonfires, sending sparks dancing into the inky sky. The air vibrated with the excited murmurs of wolves, the low growls of greeting, and the exhilarating scent of hundreds of shifters. Lyra's senses, honed by years of training, picked up every detail: the nervous flutter of a young female, the proud swagger of a seasoned warrior, the scent of fear from an outsider. Her gaze swept over the crowd, seeking her mark. And then she found him. Jaxson. He stood tall, dominating the space, even amidst other powerful alphas. His obsidian hair gleamed in the firelight, and his silver eyes, even from this distance, seemed to radiate a compelling authority. He was laughing, a deep, resonant sound that carried across the clearing, and a strange, unfamiliar warmth bloomed in Lyra's chest at the sound. Her wolf, usually a disciplined, silent presence, stirred. A low, yearning rumble deep within her. She pushed it down, ruthlessly. Focus, Lyra. Focus. Her plan was simple, brutal, and effective. During the traditional Alpha's address, when all attention would be solely on him, she would strike. A specially crafted blade, coated in a fast-acting, untraceable poison, would pierce his heart, swift and silent. She would then disappear into the chaos, her mission complete. As the Alpha's address began, a hush fell over the clearing. Jaxson stepped onto a raised platform beside the ancient moonstone altar, its surface glowing faintly under the waxing moon. His voice, strong and clear, resonated through the night, speaking of unity, of strength, of the enduring spirit of the werewolf kind. Lyra prepared. Her hand tightened on the hilt of the small, poisoned dagger concealed within her sleeve. Her breathing deepened, steadying. This was it, the culmination of everything. The mission, the purpose for which she had been born. And then it happened, a sensation unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't just the warmth she had felt earlier. It was a jolt, a searing current that shot through her veins, a sudden blinding awareness that wrapped around her heart and squeezed. Her wolf, previously suppressed, roared within her, not in warning, but in recognition. It was a primal, undeniable pull, a spiritual tether that snapped into place with a resounding, invisible force. Her breath hitched. She stumbled back, clutching her chest, a strangled gasp escaping her lips. The dagger clattered, unnoticed, from her grasp, falling silently onto the damp leaves. Lyra's vision blurred, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. Below, in the clearing, Jaxson paused mid-sentence, his powerful voice faltering. His silver eyes, previously fixed on his pack, suddenly snapped upwards, unerringly, directly to Lyra's hidden position on the bluff. His head tilted, as if listening to an inaudible sound, and a look of profound shock, then dawning wonder, spread across his face. The bond. It had snapped into place. The fated mate bond. Here. Now. At the worst possible moment. Lyra felt it with an undeniable certainty. Not just a spiritual connection, but a physical one. His heartbeat, strong and steady, vibrated within her own chest, a mirrored rhythm that settled deep in her soul. His scent, previously just one among many, now sharpened, intensified, becoming the most intoxicating, comforting aroma she had ever known. A wave of profound, inexplicable love washed over her, a dizzying, terrifying surge of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her carefully constructed defenses. He was the Alpha she was born to love, the one whose pulse now echoed in her own veins, a resonant thrum of destiny. And her blade, just moments before, had been in motion, ready to pierce his heart. The horror of it, the colossal, sickening irony, slammed into Lyra with the force of a physical blow. Her mission, her sacred duty, against her fated mate. How could the goddess be so cruel, or so divinely mischievous? She had to run. Now, before the bond dragged her further into this impossible nightmare, before the love that blossomed so violently within her consumed her and prevented her from completing her mission. Because if she didn't finish it, if she failed, someone else would. And then, Not only would her mate die, but so would she, hunted by her own ruthless pack for her failure. And he would never know the truth. He would never know that his fated mate, the one whose heartbeat now thrummed with his own, had almost been his assassin. The bond was a live wire, humming between them, an undeniable force that pulled at Lyra with every beat of her new shared heart. Jaxson's gaze, once locked onto her hidden position, was now confused, searching the darkness on the bluff where she had been. He hadn't seen her, not truly, but he had felt the unmistakable surge of the mate bond, raw and powerful, announcing its presence to them both. He was an alpha, and a fated bond was paramount. He wouldn't let it go. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at Lyra's throat. She had to move. Now. Before he could pinpoint her, before the curious murmurs of his pack escalated into focused attention. She melted back into the deeper shadows, her movements fluid and practiced, her heightened senses screaming at her to flee. The bond, however, refused to be ignored. With every step she took away, it stretched, a taut, invisible tether that threatened to snap. A wave of Jaxson's confusion, then concern, washed over her, an unsettling emotional echo within her own mind. He was looking for her. He was feeling for her. It was an intrusion, a vulnerability she had never anticipated, never trained for. Her conditioning screamed at her to sever all emotional ties, to remain a blank slate. But the bond was not a thing of logic or training. It was primal, immutable. She moved with desperate speed, descending the bluff and plunging deeper into the forest, away from the Moonwood camp. Her destination was a prearranged rendezvous point, a forgotten hunter's cabin several miles from the gathering, where her shadow pack handler, Rorik, would be waiting. He was her direct superior, a cold, calculating wolf who valued efficiency and results above all else. Failing him was not an option. As she ran, the scent of Jaxson, sharp and undeniably masculine, filled her senses, even though he was hundreds of yards away. It was a potent mix of pine, ozone, and something uniquely him, a scent that branded itself onto her very essence, overriding all other aromas. Her wolf, usually so controlled, whimpered with a desperate yearning, a profound ache to turn back, to answer the call of its mate. Lyra fought it, ruthlessly suppressing the instinct, forcing her mind back to the mission, to the dire consequences of failure. The forest was a blur of dark shapes and rushing wind. Lyra pushed her body, her lungs burning, her muscles screaming in protest. She leaped over fallen logs, wove through dense undergrowth, her path chosen to be as circuitous and difficult to follow as possible. She was an assassin. She was untraceable. But the bond was a compass, constantly pulling her back to him, subtly twisting her internal sense of direction, a maddening, irresistible force. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Lyra burst into a small, overgrown clearing. The hunter's cabin, weathered and dilapidated, stood dark against the backdrop of the ancient trees. Rorik emerged from the shadows, a tall, lean figure whose presence was as unsettling as a silent predator. His eyes, cold and analytical, immediately assessed her. "Report," Rorik's voice was a low, rasping whisper, devoid of warmth. He saw the empty look in her eyes, the rigid set of her shoulders, the absence of the typical post-mission release. Lyra took a deep, shuddering breath, trying to steady her racing heart, trying to find her voice. "The mission was compromised," she forced out, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. Rorik's eyes narrowed, instantly detecting the tremor in her voice, the uncharacteristic hesitation. "Compromised how, Agent Delta?" he asked, his tone sharpening, using her operational code name, a reminder of her true identity. "The bond," Lyra whispered, the confession tearing at her. "It snapped. With the target, Jaxson. He's my fated mate." Silence. A chilling, absolute silence fell over the clearing, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl. Rorik's face, usually impassive, contorted into a mask of cold fury. His wolf, a terrifying, predatory presence, surged outwards, chilling the air around them. "Unacceptable," Rorik hissed, his voice like the scrape of bone on stone. "An unforeseen variable, a catastrophic failure of intelligence, and of your discipline, Agent Delta." He took a menacing step closer, his eyes burning with a dangerous light. "You know the protocols. A fated mate bond is a weakness, a liability. It must be severed, immediately." Lyra instinctively recoiled, her wolf howling in protest at the mere suggestion. Sever the bond? It felt like tearing out her very soul. But she knew the Shadow Pack's methods. They were ruthless. They would drug her, perform a horrific ritual, burn out the connection, leaving her an empty shell. And if she resisted, they would simply ensure Jaxson died by her hand or another's. And then she would die, too. "I can still complete the mission," Lyra forced herself to say, desperation lending a false confidence to her voice. "The element of surprise is gone, but I can adapt. I can find another way to get to him. Before the next full moon, before the bonder becomes too strong." The lie tasted bitter, but she clung to it. She needed time. Time to think. Time to understand this impossible new reality. Rorik studied her, his cold gaze piercing her. He saw the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between her training and the raw, untamed power of the bond. He saw the flicker of hope, the desperate plea. "You understand the consequences of failure, Agent Delta," Rorik said, his voice laced with menace. "The Shadow Pack does not tolerate weakness, nor does it tolerate emotional attachments to targets, especially not this target. He is a threat to our agenda. His removal is paramount." Lyra nodded, her throat tight. She knew. She lived by those consequences. "Very well," Rorik finally conceded, his decision clearly weighing heavily on him. "I will grant you a single extension, 1 week, until the next quarter moon. You will return to the Moonwood Pack. You will ingratiate yourself. You will find another opportunity, and you will eliminate him. If you fail, Lyra," he stressed her birth name, a chilling reminder of the humanity she had been forced to suppress. "We will do it ourselves, and then we will deal with you. Understand?" Lyra looked into Rorik's cold, unwavering eyes, and saw her death if she failed. She saw Jaxson's death if she succeeded. She was caught in an impossible trap, her heart already bleeding from the first cut. "Understood," Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. Rurik gave a curt nod, a single gesture of dismissal. He melted back into the shadows, leaving Lyra alone in the clearing, the oppressive weight of her new mission settling over her like a shroud. Her fated mate. Her target. 1 week. The bond thrummed, a steady, aching rhythm in her chest, a constant reminder of the beautiful, terrifying man she was destined to destroy. And if she didn't, someone else would. And then she would be next. The return to the Moonwood Pack's territory felt like stepping into a parallel dimension, a place where the air thrummed with a vibrant life she was sworn to extinguish. The bond, no longer a sudden shock, had settled into a constant, subtle hum beneath her skin, a persistent awareness of Jaxson's presence, his moods, even the cadence of his heart. It was a beautiful, terrifying thing, a constant counterpoint to the assassin's conditioning that screamed at her to remain detached. Her cover story, meticulously crafted by the Shadow Pack, was simple enough. She was a lone wolf, a wanderer seeking a new pack, drawn by the tales of the Moonwood's strength and their revered alpha. It was a common enough occurrence at a gathering, though usually lone wolves sought out a specific mate, not just a pack. But the Shadow Pack had banked on the Moonwood's reputation for hospitality, especially towards unattached females. Upon her arrival at the Moonwood camp, she was met by a patrol. Their initial wariness quickly softened when Lyra, allowing her wolf to radiate a controlled vulnerability, expressed her desire to join their ranks. The air was still thick with the lingering scent of the gathering, a faint, lingering echo of the initial surge of the mate bond. Lyra felt Jaxson's presence before she saw him, a powerful pull that anchored her, even as every fibre of her being urged her to flee. He emerged from the Alpha's den, drawn by the arrival of a newcomer. His silver eyes, intense and piercing, immediately found hers. Lyra's breath hitched. The bond flared, a blinding flash of connection that momentarily overwhelmed her senses. Jaxson stumbled, a faint gasp escaping his lips, his hand unconsciously reaching for his chest, as if to steady a wildly beating heart. He felt it too, the undeniable pull. He recovered quickly, his alpha training kicking in, masking the raw shock with a controlled, assessing gaze. He walked towards her, his powerful stride purposeful, his scent enveloping her, an intoxicating blend of pine and ozone that ignited a profound yearning deep within her wolf. "You are new to our lands," Jaxson stated, his voice a deep baritone that resonated through Lyra's core, sending shivers down her spine. It was a statement, not a question. Lyra forced herself to meet his gaze, suppressing the powerful urge to collapse into his arms, to let the bond consume her. "I am Lyra," she replied, her voice carefully modulated, betraying no hint of the storm raging within her. "A lone wolf. I have travelled far, drawn by the strength and reputation of the Moonwood Pack, and by your leadership, Alpha." The lie felt like poison on her tongue, but she delivered it with practiced sincerity. Jaxson's silver eyes narrowed, studying her. She felt his alpha aura, powerful and probing, assessing her intentions. He was looking for deception, for malice. But the bond, paradoxically, shielded her. It was a truth deeper than any lie she could conjure, a connection that spoke of honesty, even amidst the greatest deception. He would feel her wolf's truth, its recognition of him as mate, even as her human mind plotted his demise. "You felt it too, didn't you?" Jaxson asked, his voice softer now, a hint of wonder in its depths. The question was not just about the general energy of the pack, but about the specific, searing jolt of their bond. Lyra's heart hammered. She had to deny it, deflect. But the bond screamed the truth. "The energy of your pack is indeed powerful, Alpha," she evaded, her gaze flickering away, feigning modesty. "It is unlike anything I have encountered." Jackson's lips quirked into a small, knowing smile. He didn't push. He simply nodded. "We welcome all who seek peace and belonging. Lyra, rest. We will speak further tomorrow. A new moon will rise soon, and with it, new beginnings." His words were an unintentional double entendre, carrying a chilling prophecy for Lyra. He assigned her to a small, comfortable guest den, a temporary dwelling within the main pack housing. Lyra knew it was a gesture of Alpha hospitality, a sign of his cautious acceptance. But it also put her dangerously close to him. Too close. That night, Lyra lay on the soft furs of her new den, the scent of the pack surrounding her, the hum of the mate bond, a constant thrum beneath her skin. She felt Jackson's presence in the Alpha's den, just a few doors down. She could almost hear his breathing, feel the steady rhythm of his heart, mirrored within her own. It was maddening. Her assassin's mind, cold and calculating, began to formulate new plans. She was inside. She was accepted. The proximity was a gift, a terrifying opportunity. The poison, the training, the single-minded focus on the mission, it was all still there, ingrained, instinctual. But now, layered over it all, was the bewildering, overwhelming presence of the mate bond. It was a constant internal battle. Her wolf cried out for connection, for the warmth of her mate. Her human mind, brutalized by years of shadow pack conditioning, struggled to maintain its focus on the mission. She felt torn, ripped apart by opposing forces, each demanding absolute loyalty. She had to complete the mission. She had to. Not just for her own survival, but because the Shadow Pack would send someone else if she failed. Someone less conflicted, someone who would revel in the kill. And Jaxson would die, regardless. At least this way, she had control. At least this way, his death could be swift, clean. But how could she kill the man whose heartbeat echoed in her own chest? The man her very soul recognized as its other half? The man her wolf yearned for with every fibre of its being? Lyra closed her eyes, clutching her head, the conflict a raw bleeding wound in her soul. She was his fated mate, but she was also his assassin. And the clock was ticking. 1 week. The new moon was coming, and she had to choose between love and death, between her own survival and the very essence of her being. The days that followed were a torturous dance between the relentless demands of her mission and the overwhelming pull of the mate bond. Lyra moved through the Moonwood Pack like a ghost, outwardly calm and composed, inwardly a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. She immersed herself in pack life, observing, learning, meticulously gathering intelligence. She joined the hunting parties, her silent, efficient movements impressing the Moonwood warriors. She helped with the daily chores, her unexpected gentleness surprising the younger wolves and earning the quiet approval of the elder women. She listened to the pack's stories, their laughter, their concerns, and with each passing interaction, the protective instincts of her wolf grew stronger, intertwining with the insidious poison of her mission. Jaxson was omnipresent. Their bond, a silent, constant connection, meant she was always aware of him. She felt his shifts in mood, his focus during council meetings, his quiet pride in his pack, the rare moments of playful joy with the younger pups. His scent, a constant, intoxicating presence, filled her world. She would often find his gaze on her, warm and assessing, a flicker of that shared recognition in his silver eyes that sent a jolt through her. He was slowly, cautiously, reaching out, acknowledging the nascent connection between them. One afternoon, Lyra was helping some of the younger female wolves gather medicinal herbs in a sun-dappled clearing. Jaxson approached, his presence announced by the familiar surge of warmth through their bond. The young wolves immediately straightened, their respect for their alpha palpable. "Lyra," Jaxson said, his voice a low rumble. "The elder women speak highly of your healing knowledge. You possess a unique touch." Lyra bowed her head slightly, masking the tremor that went through her. "I learned what I could, Alpha. The forest offers many secrets." Jackson's gaze was intense, searching. "You have a gentleness, Lyra, a quiet strength. It is a rare combination." He paused, then continued, his voice softer. "I felt a connection the night of the gathering, a powerful resonance. It was undeniable." He was speaking of the bond. He was acknowledging it. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. This was her chance to deflect, to maintain her facade. But the words caught in her throat. She found herself looking into his silver eyes and saw not just the alpha, but her mate, the other half of her soul. The lies felt heavy, suffocating. I felt a powerful energy, Alpha," Lyra repeated, the same evasion, but this time it sounded weaker, less convincing even to her own ears. Her wolf was howling its truth, tearing at her carefully constructed lies. Jackson's gaze deepened, a knowing glint in his eyes. He didn't press. He simply nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Perhaps the moon goddess has sent you to us, Lyra, to bring new balance." His words were filled with a quiet hope that stabbed Lyra through the heart. Each interaction, each moment spent with him, each new facet of his character, she discovered his unwavering commitment to his pack, his surprising tenderness, his fierce loyalty deepened the impossible chasm within her. How could she kill this man? How could she betray the very essence of their shared soul? Yet the clock was ticking. The new moon was barely 3 days away. Rorik's cold, analytical voice echoed in her mind. "If you fail, we will do it ourselves. And then we will deal with you." She pictured her fellow Shadow Pack assassins, ruthless and efficient, moving in where she hesitated. She imagined Jackson's death by a hand less conflicted, less merciful. She imagined her own brutal end, hunted down for her failure, her weakness, her unwanted connection. One night, unable to sleep, Lyra slipped out of her den and walked towards the moonstone altar in the central clearing. The waxing moon cast long, ghostly shadows across the ancient stone, bathing it in an ethereal glow. She reached out, touching the cool, smooth surface of the altar, feeling the faint pulse of ancient magic emanating from it. This was the heart of the Moonwood Pack, the source of its spiritual power. If Jaxson was eliminated, the pack would be vulnerable, plunged into chaos. The Shadow Pack's objective: destabilize, weaken, then perhaps absorb. As she stood there, lost in her internal torment, a quiet voice startled her. "Troubled, Lyra?" Jaxson. He stood a few feet away, his wolf form partially shifted, his eyes gleaming silver in the moonlight. He had sensed her distress through the bond, felt her pull to the sacred stone. Lyra stiffened, her assassin's instincts flaring. She cursed her momentary lapse in vigilance. "Alpha," she said, quickly regaining her composure. "I found myself drawn to the moon's light, to the altar's power." Jaxson walked closer, his presence warm and comforting despite the chilling knowledge of her mission. He stood beside her, looking at the moonstone. "It is a sacred place," he murmured. "A place of solace, of truth." He looked at her, his silver eyes searching. "What truth do you seek, Lyra?" The question hung heavy in the air. The truth. The truth was that she was a lie. The truth was that she was his fated mate and his assassin. The truth was that she was irrevocably, horribly torn. "I seek clarity, Alpha," Lyra whispered, her voice raw with a sincerity that was both genuine and a profound betrayal. "To understand my path, to find my place." Jaxson reached out, his hand gently covering hers on the smooth surface of the moonstone. A jolt, soft but powerful, went through Lyra. The bond flared, a brilliant explosion of light and warmth. She felt his strength, his kindness, his profound connection to his pack. She felt his heartbeat, strong and steady, echoing her own. And in that moment, for the first time, Lyra acknowledged the overwhelming, terrifying truth. She was falling in love with him. The weight of her mission became unbearable. How could she possibly kill him? How could she extinguish this light, this warmth, this undeniable connection that transcended all logic, all training? But the alternative, the image of Rorik's cold eyes, the thought of his ruthless blade, the certainty of her own agonizing death if she failed. Lyra's breath hitched. She looked at Jaxson, his face illuminated by the moonlight, and saw the man her soul yearned for. Her hand, still entwined with his on the moonstone, began to tremble. The mission, the bond, love, death. The lines blurred, the choices impossible. The new moon was almost here, and her decision, agonizing and inevitable, was looming. The approaching new moon hung in the sky like a sickle blade, thin and sharp, a chilling countdown to Lyra's agonizing deadline. The bond with Jaxson had deepened beyond anything she could have imagined. Every shared glance, every soft touch, every moment of comfortable silence wove itself irrevocably into the tapestry of her soul. She felt his contentment when the pack was at peace, his focused determination during training, and a profound, aching tenderness whenever his thoughts brushed against hers. a silent whisper of burgeoning love. It was a beautiful, terrifying trap. Her internal conflict raged, a silent battle that left her physically and emotionally exhausted. Her shadow pack conditioning, years of brutal training, screamed at her to kill, to complete the mission, to survive. But her wolf, howling with the primal demand of the fated mate bond, cried out for connection, for protection, for life with him. She was torn between two absolute loyalties, each threatening to destroy her. She had explored every possible avenue for assassination. The poisoned dagger, the quick strike in the shadows, a targeted shot during a patrol. But each time, the image of his face, the feel of his heartbeat mirroring her own, the overwhelming wave of love would paralyze her. Her hands, trained to kill, now trembled at the thought of harming him. One morning, Lyra was in the pack's training grounds, honing her skills with the other warriors. She moved with a fluid grace, her movements precise and deadly, a testament to her ruthless training. Jaxson watched her, his gaze unwavering, a flicker of admiration in his silver eyes. Later, he approached her, a training blade in his hand. "You move with an unusual grace, Lyra," he said, his voice thoughtful. "Your technique is formidable. Where did you learn such moves?" Lyra's heart hammered. This was dangerous territory. Her training was unique to the Shadow Pack, designed for silent kills, for incapacitation, for stealth. "I land in the wilderness, Alpha," she replied, carefully. "Survival demands keen reflexes." Jaxson smiled, a genuine, warm smile that sent a shiver through Lyra. "Perhaps you can spar with me then? Our warriors could learn from your style." Lyra's breath hitched. Sparring with him. Close quarters. An opportunity. Her assassin's mind immediately began cataloguing vulnerable points, pressure points, weaknesses. But her wolf roared in protest, recoiling from the thought of raising a hand against him, even in a simulated fight. She couldn't do it. Not yet. I would be honored, Alpha," Lyra managed, forcing the words out, "that I am still recovering from my journey. Perhaps another time, when I am at my full strength." Jaxson nodded, understanding. "Of course. Take your time. We have much to learn from each other." His words, meant kindly, felt like a cruel irony. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. The new moon was so close. The internal pressure was immense. She knew Rorik would be watching, waiting. He had given her an extension, but his patience was not infinite. She slipped out of her den, driven by an instinct she couldn't suppress. Her feet carried her to the moonstone altar once more. The sliver of the new moon was barely visible, a ghostly crescent against the dark sky. The altar pulsed with a faint, insistent energy. Lyra knelt, pressing her forehead against the cool stone. "Goddess," she whispered, her voice raw, broken. "What have you done to me? What is this choice you demand?" Her wolf whimpered, a low, mournful sound, echoing her despair. She felt the bond, Jaxson's calming presence, even from a distance. It was unbearable. She had to choose. Kill him, and live with the agony of ending her fated mate, of shattering their bond, of betraying her soul. Or let him live, and face the wrath of the Shadow Pack, the certainty of her own death, and the knowledge that they would send someone else to finish the mission, leaving Jaxson vulnerable to a less merciful hand. Suddenly, a presence beside her. Jaxson. He knelt beside her, his hand gently covering hers on the moonstone. The bond flared, overwhelming her. Lyra gasped, tears springing to her eyes. "Lyra," Jaxson murmured, his voice laced with concern. "What troubles you so deeply? I feel your anguish. Tell me." Lyra stared at their entwined hands on the moonstone, the cold stone now radiating the combined warmth of their bond. She couldn't keep lying. She couldn't kill him. Not now. Not ever. The choice was clear, agonizingly clear. She would choose him. She would choose life, even if it meant her own death. And she would tell him the truth. All of it. "Jaxson," Lyra began, her voice trembling but imbued with a desperate resolve. She pulled her hand from beneath his, reaching into her sleeve, her fingers closing around the hilt of the small, poisoned dagger. Jackson's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise, then caution in their depths. "I am not who you think I am," Lyra whispered, her voice breaking. "I am not a lone wolf seeking a new pack. I was sent here to kill you." Jaxson stiffened, his wolf surging, his expression hardening. His hand instinctively went to his own weapon, his body tensing, ready for an attack. The scent of ozone and primal readiness filled the air. Lyra pulled the dagger from her sleeve, its poisoned tip gleaming ominously in the faint moonlight. She held it out to him, hilt first, her hand shaking violently. "This blade was meant for your heart," Lyra confessed, her voice choked with emotion, tears streaming freely down her face. "It is coated in a fast-acting, untraceable poison. I was trained for this. I am an assassin of the Shadow Pack." Jaxson stared at the dagger, then at her, his silver eyes wide with shock, disbelief, and a profound sense of betrayal. The bond, which had flared so brightly moments before, now throbbed with a searing pain, mirroring his shock, his wounded pride. "The bond, it happened," Lyra continued, desperate to make him understand, to somehow convey the impossible truth of her torment. "On the night of the gathering, I felt you. I felt our connection. And I couldn't do it, Jaxson. I couldn't kill you. My handlers, they gave me until the new moon. If I failed, they would send someone else, and then they would kill me." She looked at him, her eyes pleading, raw with vulnerability, stripped of all pretense. "I chose you, Jaxson. I chose us. Even if it means my death, I couldn't betray this bond. I couldn't betray my soul. I chose to tell you the truth. Everything." She presented the dagger to him, hilt first, her hand unwavering now, a silent offering of her life, her confession, her utter surrender to the truth of their bond. "I am your fated mate, Jaxson, and I was your assassin. My blade was in motion. But now it is yours. My life is in your hands." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the frantic beat of Lyra's heart. Jaxson stared at the dagger, then at Lyra, his face a mask of shock, his silver eyes filled with a storm of warring emotions, anger, disbelief, betrayal, but also, surprisingly, a flicker of something else. Something akin to wonder, to a dawning comprehension. of the impossible choice she had made. The new moon was barely a sliver in the sky, and Lyra had just laid her heart and her life bare before the man she was destined to kill and destined to love. His reaction would determine everything. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating, broken only by the frantic drumming of Lyra's heart against her ribs. Jackson's silver eyes, usually so clear and commanding, were clouded with a storm of disbelief, pain, and a profound, aching betrayal. He stared at the poisoned dagger Lyra offered, then back at her, his face a mask of stunned shock. The bond, which had flared so intensely a moment ago, now throbbed with a searing pain, a wound mirroring the deep cut she had inflicted on his soul. "An assassin," Jaxson finally whispered, his voice hoarse, disbelieving. "My fated mater, an assassin, sent to kill me." The words were heavy with a bitter irony, a truth too terrible to comprehend. Lyra knelt, the dagger still extended, her eyes pleading. "It was my mission, Jaxson. From birth, I was trained for nothing else. My pack, they are ruthless. They force fealty through fear. They threatened my life, and yours, if I failed. But the bonde, it changed everything. I couldn't do it. I couldn't betray what the goddess intended. I couldn't betray you." Tears streamed down her face, hot and unbidden. "My life is yours. You can strike me down now. It would be a mercy compared to the torment of having to betray you." Jaxson didn't take the dagger. His gaze, though still filled with pain, slowly began to soften, a flicker of something akin to understanding replacing the initial shock. He saw the genuine anguish in her eyes, the raw vulnerability of her confession, the trembling hand that offered the instrument of his potential demise. He felt the pure, untainted surge of her wolf through their bond, a desperate yearning for connection, a profound love that transcended the monstrous truth of her origins. He slowly, deliberately, knelt before her, his powerful presence filling the space between them. His hand reached out, not for the dagger, but for Lyra's trembling hand that held it. He gently took the dagger from her, his fingers brushing hers, sending a jolt of mingled pain and warmth through the bond. He didn't turn the blade on her. Instead, with a quiet solemnity, he plunged the dagger into the earth beside the moonstone altar, burying the poisoned blade deep into the sacred soil, effectively neutralizing its threat. "No," Jaxson said, his voice low, firm, but devoid of anger. "I will not strike you down, Lyra. The goddess chose you for me, and you chose me. That choice, that bond, is stronger than any mission, any treachery." He reached out, his powerful hands gently cupping her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. His silver eyes, though still reflecting deep pain, now held a fierce, protective resolve. "You spoke the truth. You made a choice. And that choice, Lyra, saves you. And it saves us both." Lyra sobbed, a profound, gut-wrenching sound of relief and despair. Relief that he hadn't killed her. Despair at the impossible situation they now faced. "But the Shadow Pack," Lyra whispered, her voice choked. "Rorik, they will send others. They will know I failed. They will come for both of us." Jackson's jaw tightened, his expression hardening with a grim determination. Then we will face them, together. He pulled her into his arms, a fierce, protective embrace that Lyra clung to as if her life depended on it. His scent enveloped her, his heartbeat thrummed against her ear, mirroring her own, and for the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly safe, truly home, even amidst the terrifying storm she had unleashed. He held her for a long time, letting her tears flow, letting her ragged breath steady. When she finally pulled back, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute, he looked at her with a clarity that astonished her. "We need to tell the council," Jaxson stated, his voice calm, pragmatic. "They need to know the full truth of the Shadow Pack's infiltration. And your role in it. It will be difficult. They will question you. They may even fear you. But honesty is our only path forward." Lyra nodded, her throat tight. She knew the risks. The Moonwood Pack was honourable, but they were also fiercely protective. Her confession would shake them to their core. Later that morning, Lyra stood before the assembled council of elders, her body trembling, but her resolve steady. Jaxson stood beside her, his hand resting on the small of her back, a silent, unwavering display of support that spoke volumes to the wary elders. Jaxson began, recounting Lyra's confession with a brutal honesty, holding nothing back. He spoke of the Shadow Pack's methods, their ruthless ambition, and how Lyra had been moulded into their instrument. He spoke of the fated mate bond, its undeniable power, and Lyra's ultimate choice to betray her mission rather than betray her soul. When he finished, a stunned silence descended upon the council. Their faces, usually etched with wisdom and calm, were now masks of shock, betrayal, and fear. Murmurs rippled through the assembled pack members who had gathered, their initial curiosity turning to suspicion and anger. The High Priestess, her eyes wide with disbelief, finally spoke. "An assassin, among us, and her fated mate, our Alpha." Her voice trembled with outrage. Granite, the eldest elder, his gaze piercing, fixed on Lyra. "How can we trust you, Lyra? Your very presence here was a deception. Your loyalty was to an enemy pack. How do we know this isn't another trick?" Lyra took a deep breath, meeting his gaze directly. "I understand your suspicion, Elder. I bear the mark of my past. My actions were unforgivable, but I swear on the Moonstone, on the very essence of my wolf, that my loyalty is now and forever with Alpha Jaxson and with the Moonwood Pack. My confession, my life, are proof. I chose to face death rather than harm him. I chose to speak the truth, knowing it could mean my end. I chose this pack. I chose my mate." She spoke from the heart, stripped bare of all pretense. She saw the skepticism in some eyes, the fear in others, but also, in a few, a flicker of understanding, of recognition of the profound, impossible choice she had made. Jaxson stepped forward, his voice ringing with authority. "Her choice was made, elders. Her spirit has been purified by her truth. The moon goddess herself, in forging this bond, has intervened. She risked everything to save me, to save us. To reject her now would be to reject the goddess's will and to leave her vulnerable to the Shadow Pack, who will undoubtedly come for her. For us." His gaze hardened. "We will need her knowledge, her skills, to face what is coming. And we will need her strength, for she is my Luna and the chosen protector of this pack." The council deliberated, their voices hushed their faces etched with the weight of this impossible decision. Lyra stood, her future hanging in the balance, her fate in the hands of the pack she had almost destroyed. She had exposed her greatest vulnerability, laid bare her darkest secret, and now she waited for their judgment. The new moon, a thin sliver in the sky, seemed to hold its breath. The council's deliberations stretched for agonizing hours. Lyra stood beside Jaxson, the air thick with tension, her breath catching in her throat with every hushed murmur from the elders. She could feel the conflicting emotions radiating from the pack: shock, fear, suspicion, but also a nascent curiosity, a cautious respect for the courage of her confession. Jackson's unwavering presence beside her was her anchor, his hand resting reassuringly on her arm, a silent testament to his faith in her. Finally, Granite, the eldest elder, slowly raised his head, his ancient eyes sweeping over Lyra, then Jaxson, then the rest of the council. "This is a matter of profound weight," he began, his voice raspy but firm. "A fated bond, divinely ordained, yet forged in the crucible of betrayal and deceit. An assassin, yet one who chose truth over duty and love over self-preservation." He paused, a solemn silence filling the air. "The Moonwood Pack values honesty, loyalty, and the sacred will of the goddess. Lyra, you came to us with deception in your heart. That cannot be ignored. However, you also came to us with the truth, choosing to confess your mission, to reveal the danger, and to stand by your fated mate, even at the cost of your own life," the High Priestess added, her voice imbued with ancient wisdom. "The goddess does not make mistakes in her choosing. Her intervention, the snap of the bond, was a powerful sign. It suggests a path to redemption, a chance for Lyra to shed the darkness of her past and embrace the light of her true destiny. As Luna." Granite looked at Lyra, his gaze piercing. "Therefore, the council, after deep reflection and consultation with the moon goddess, has reached a decision. Lyra, your confession and your choice to stand with Alpha Jaxson, your fated mate, despite the immense personal cost, have weighed heavily in your favor. Your knowledge of the Shadow Pack will also be invaluable in protecting our own." He took a deep breath. "You will be accepted into the Moonwood Pack, not as a warrior, not as an Alpha's mate initially, but as a probationary member. Your past will remain known, a shadow that will take time to disperse. Your actions will be closely observed. You will undergo a period of probation, during which you will demonstrate, through your unwavering loyalty and dedication, that your heart truly belongs to the Moonwood Pack. During this time, the bond with our Alpha will be acknowledged, but your position as Luna will remain unconfirmed until such a time as the Pack fully trusts you." A collective sigh rippled through the gathered Pack members. It was a cautious acceptance, a path to redemption, not immediate absolution. It was a compromise, a demonstration of both the council's wisdom and their lingering caution. "As for the Shadow Pack," Granite continued, his voice hardening, "your information about them, Lyra, is now critical. Their intent to destabilize and absorb other packs, especially after such a grievous betrayal, cannot be ignored. Alpha Jaxson, you and your Luna, along with your trusted advisors, will formulate a strategy to deal with this grave threat." Jaxson stepped forward, his hand once more resting on Lyra's back, his silver eyes meeting hers in a look of shared resolve. "Thank you, elders. We will not fail you. Lyra will prove her loyalty, and together we will protect the Moonwood Pack from any threat, external or internal." The council dispersed, leaving Lyra and Jaxson alone in the clearing. The setting moon cast long, eerie shadows, but the air felt lighter, cleansed by the truth, even if the path ahead was still fraught with challenges. Lyra turned to Jaxson, her heart overflowing with a complex mix of gratitude, relief, and a profound sense of responsibility. "They accepted me," she whispered, a fragile hope in her voice. "A chance." "A chance you earned, Lyra," Jaxson replied, his grip firm on her arm. "By choosing honesty, by choosing us." His silver eyes glowed with a fierce determination. "But this is only the beginning. The Shadow Pack will not let this go. They will come for you, and they will come for us, seeking to exploit what they see as a weakness by trusting you, the bond itself." He led her back towards the Alpha's den, not to the guest quarters, but to his own private chambers, a silent but powerful gesture of his unwavering commitment to their bond, regardless of the council's probationary terms. That night, Lyra lay in Jackson's arms, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her ear, the warmth of his body enveloping her. The bond hummed with a profound sense of belonging, a love that was both a shield and a powerful weapon. She recounted to him, in detail, everything she knew about the Shadow Pack, their secretive training methods, their network of spies, their ruthless leaders like Rorik, their dark ambitions to control the region through quiet subjugation. She described their unique, insidious poison that left no trace, their use of dark rituals to enhance their abilities, and their absolute intolerance for failure. Jaxson listened, his expression grim, his jaw tight. "They are a formidable threat," he admitted, his voice low. "But we are stronger. We have unity. We have our traditions. And we have you, Lyra. Your knowledge is our greatest defense." He pulled her closer. "From this moment on, Lyra, your past is a weapon we will wield. Your training, your instincts, they will protect our pack, not destroy it. You are no longer just an assassin. You are our eyes and ears in the shadows. You are my mate, and you will become our Luna, in truth and in power." Lyra closed her eyes, a profound sense of purpose settling over her. Her life, once a cold, calculated mission of death, was now a vibrant, terrifying, yet deeply fulfilling mission of life, of protection, of forging a new destiny alongside the man who was her other half. The path ahead was treacherous, fraught with danger from her former pack, but she was no longer alone. She was with him, and together they would face whatever darkness came their way. The Moonwood Pack became Lyra's new training ground, that this time the lessons were about belonging, trust, and the fierce joy of defending a home she had almost destroyed. Her probationary status was a constant reminder of her past, a shadow that clung to her, particularly in the wary glances of some pack members. Yet, Lyra embraced it. She knew trust had to be earned, painstakingly, brick by brick. She started by dedicating herself to the pack's well-being. She shared her knowledge of medicinal herbs, not just the healing ones, but also the subtle protective properties she had learned from the Shadow Pack's more benign-seeming lore. She taught the younger wolves silent tracking techniques, showing them how to move unseen through the forest, skills that would now serve to protect their borders rather than breach them. She spent hours with the elder women, soaking in their wisdom, finding a solace in their ancient stories that her assassin's heart had never known. Jaxson was her unwavering anchor. He constantly reassured her, both privately and subtly publicly, but her place was with him, with the Moonwood Pack. He consulted her on strategic decisions, valuing her insights into Shadow Pack tactics. He presented her to visiting pack leaders, introducing her as Lyra, my fated mate, a bold statement that underscored his absolute conviction in her, even as her lunar title remained probationary. Their bond, now free of the immediate threat of betrayal, flourished, deepening into a profound connection that anchored them both. Lyra felt his strength, his calm, his unwavering belief in her, and it became the bedrock upon which she rebuilt her shattered identity. Meanwhile, the threat from the Shadow Pack loomed. Lyra's intelligence, combined with Jackson's meticulous planning, painted a grim picture. Rorik, her former handler, would be relentless. He would see her failure as a weakness, a personal affront. And he would likely be seeking to complete the original mission, or worse, to punish Lyra by destroying the Moonwood Pack. Their primary tactic is psychological warfare, Lyra explained to Jaxson and the head warriors during a strategy meeting. Her voice, once hushed and guarded, now held a quiet authority forged from intimate knowledge. They use whispers, rumors, targeted fear. They want to break a pack spirit before they ever strike physically. They will likely try to turn your own pack against you, Alpha, especially against me, and their strength in combat. Torvin, Jackson's beater, asked, his expression grim. He had been cautious of Lyra at first, but her unwavering loyalty to Jaxson and her clear commitment to the pack had slowly earned his respect. They are trained to exploit weaknesses, Lyra replied, her gaze distant as she recalled the brutal drills. They are disciplined, agile, and they often use a variety of non-lethal, incapacitating poisons to subdue their targets before the final strike. And their alphas, Rorik, sometimes possess an unusual ability to manipulate emotions. Jackson's jaw tightened. We will counter their deception with truth, their fear with unity, and their poisons with vigilance. The Moonwood Pack began intensive training, not just in combat, but in mental fortitude. Lyra, with her unique understanding of the Shadow Pack's psychological tactics, guided them, teaching them how to recognize and resist subtle manipulations. She taught them to trust their instincts, but also to question external influences, to rely on the strength of their internal pack bond. One evening, as Lyra walked through the sleeping village, a chill ran down her spine. The air felt heavy, tainted. She focused, drawing on her lunar aura, and felt a familiar, insidious presence. Psychic probes. They were back. And they were stronger, more aggressive than before. She rushed back to the Alpha's den, her heart pounding. Jaxson! They're here. Not physically, but they're probes. They're trying to infiltrate our minds. It's the Shadow Pack. Jaxson was instantly alert. He grabbed her hand, his wolf roaring in his chest. Alert the warriors! Sound the alarm, but keep the pack calm. Tell them to focus on the Moonwood bond, to push back the fear. Lyra immediately began projecting her lunar aura, a shield of pure protective light that spread throughout the village, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. She felt the insidious whispers, the attempts to sow fear and division, deflect off her shield, unable to take root. A chilling voice echoed in her mind, distinct from the generalized probes, chillingly familiar. Rorik's voice. Agent Delta, you have failed your mission. You have betrayed your pack. You will pay for your weakness, and your beloved Alpha will fall. Lyra gritted her teeth, pushing back with all her might, focusing on Jaxson's unwavering presence beside her, on the love that flowed through their bond. Never, Rorik, she mentally projected, her voice ringing with defiance. I chose my path. The Moonwood Pack is my pack, and I will protect them. The psychic battle raged through the night. Lyra, fueled by her bond with Jaxson and her fierce love for her new pack, held the line, her lunar aura a brilliant beacon against the encroaching darkness. By dawn, the psychic assault receded, leaving her exhausted but triumphant. The Moonwood Pack, though weary, had held firm, their spirits unbroken. The next morning, the physical threat became undeniable. Scouts reported a massive Shadow Pack force amassing at the northern border, led by Rorik himself. This was it, the final confrontation. They know, Lyra said to Jaxson, her voice grim. They know I won't turn. They know about the bond. This is their vengeance, for my betrayal and for your resistance. Jaxson pulled her close, his gaze intense, his silver eyes blazing with fierce resolve. Then we will meet them, not as a broken pack, but as a united front, and they will learn the true strength of a fated bond. He looked at her, his voice softening, filled with a profound love. Are you ready, Luna? Lyra looked back at him, her heart filled with a quiet strength. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by an unwavering determination. She was no longer just an assassin, a tool of destruction. She was a protector, a Luna, a mate, and she was ready to fight for her new life, for her new love, for her new pack. I am ready, Alpha, she replied, her voice steady and clear. Together, the battle for the Moonwood Pack and for Lyra's very soul was about to begin. The air crackled with anticipation, a heavy stillness settling over the Moonwood Pack's northern border. The scent of pine and damp earth was now overlaid with the sharp, metallic tang of fear and the acrid stench of aggressive, unfamiliar wolf scent. Lyra stood beside Jaxson, her heart thrumming a frantic rhythm, yet a profound calm had settled over her. This was the moment. Her past colliding with her present, demanding a final bloody reckoning. The Moonwood warriors, led by Torvin, stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces grim but resolute. They were fewer in number than the Shadow Pack, but their unity and determination radiated outward, a palpable force. Lyra, her lunar aura already active, was subtly weaving threads of reassurance and courage into the pack's collective consciousness, a silent counter to the insidious fear tactics she knew the Shadow Pack would deploy. Suddenly, the trees at the edge of the clearing parted, and the Shadow Pack emerged. They moved with a chilling, predatory precision, their forms cloaked in dark, muted leathers, their faces grim and unyielding. They were not a pack, they were a legion of instruments, honed for destruction. At their head stood Rorik, his cold eyes fixed on Lyra, a chilling smirk playing on his lips. Beside him, a new figure, taller and leaner, with eyes that burned with an unsettling dark fire. This was Valerius, the feared leader of the Shadow Pack, a legendary figure whispered about only in hushed tones, known for his ruthless efficiency and his mastery of psychic manipulation. Agent Delta, Rorik's voice, amplified by some unseen resonance, carried across the clearing, a mocking echo that pierced Lyra's ears. You disgrace our name. You betray our sacred oath. You choose weakness. Lyra stepped forward, her hand instinctively reaching for Jaxson's, finding his unwavering grip. I choose truth, Rorik, she replied, her voice clear and strong, defying the tremble in her heart. I choose my pack, I choose my mate, and I choose to fight for a world where love is not a weakness, but the ultimate strength. Valerius stepped forward, his eyes burning into Lyra's, a cold, intense scrutiny. A fated bond, he murmured, his voice a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate directly within Lyra's skull, a powerful psychic probe designed to overwhelm her defenses. A curious anomaly. You believe it makes you strong, little Luna? It makes you predictable, exploitably weak. He intensified his psychic assault, sending waves of raw, despairing emotion at Lyra, attempting to shatter her shield, to break her spirit. Lyra gasped, clutching her head, the mental pressure immense. She felt the chilling touch of his power, a suffocating darkness that threatened to consume her. This was far beyond Rorik's capabilities. This was the true power of the Shadow Pack's master. Lyra! Jaxson roared, sensing her distress through their bond. He surged forward, his wolf roaring, ready to engage Valerius directly, but Lyra held him back with a desperate grip. No, Jaxson, she cried out, her voice strained. He wants you distracted. He wants to break my shield. She focused, drawing on every ounce of her lunar aura, on the raw, pure power of her bond with Jaxson, pushing back against Valerius's oppressive darkness. Her shield, a shimmering dome of moonlight, held firm, though it pulsed with the strain. The battle erupted. The Shadow Pack surged forward, their disciplined ranks clashing with the Moonwood warriors. Steel rang against steel, teeth bared, snarls echoing through the forest. Torvin, a whirlwind of powerful blows, led the Moonwood's counterattack, his loyalty to Jaxson unwavering. Rorik, his face twisted with cold fury, lunged for Lyra, intending to silence her, to shatter her concentration. The Jaxson, a blur of silver fur and raw power, intercepted him. The two alphas clashed, a brutal fight fueled by vengeance and bitter history. Lyra, caught in the spiritual struggle with Valerius, maintained her aura, protecting her pack. She felt the subtle psychic attacks of the Shadow Pack warriors, attempts to sow chaos and fear, deflect off her shield. Her lunar aura pulsed, a bright beacon against the encroaching darkness. She realized that Valerius wasn't just trying to break her shield, he was trying to understand it, to replicate it, to twist it for his own dark purposes. Your power is fascinating, Lyra. Valerius's voice resonated in her mind, a chilling whisper. But ultimately, futile. You cannot fight the inevitable. Your bond makes you vulnerable. It makes you weak. Lyra gritted her teeth, refusing to yield. She channeled her rage, her love for Jaxson. her fierce protectiveness for the Moonwood Pack into her aura. "My bond makes me strong, Valerius," she projected back, her voice echoing with conviction. "It is a connection you could never understand. Your power is born of fear and control. Mine is born of love and truth." With a guttural roar, Lyra focused all her spiritual energy, not just on defense, but on offense. She unleashed a wave of pure, unadulterated compassion, a blinding burst of empathy directed at Valerius. It wasn't an attack, but a sudden, overwhelming force of light against his pervasive darkness. Valerius cried out, a raw, pained sound, recoiling from the sudden, alien sensation. His psychic hold fractured, his dark energy momentarily scattering. He stumbled back, clutching his head, his eyes wide with shock. He had never encountered such a pure, overwhelming force of positive emotion. It was anathema to him. This was the opening Jaxson needed. He had been battling Rorik fiercely, but the Shadow Alpha's cunning and ruthless efficiency were proving a formidable challenge. Now, seeing Valerius falter, seeing the raw power Lyra had unleashed, Jaxson felt a surge of renewed strength. He delivered a devastating blow to Rorik, knocking him to the ground, momentarily incapacitated. Jaxson then turned his full fury on Valerius. "You underestimate the Luna's power," he roared, lunging forward. Valerius, still reeling from Lyra's spiritual attack, was caught off guard. Jaxson, swift and powerful, landed a series of crushing blows, his rage fueling his strength. Valerius, despite his dark power, was primarily a manipulator, not a physical fighter of Jackson's caliber. The Shadow Pack warriors, seeing their leader falter and Lyra's shield holding firm, began to lose their discipline. Their psychic whispers faltered, and the Moonwood warriors, unburdened by fear and strengthened by Lyra's light, pushed back with renewed vigor, driving them back. Valerius, sensing defeat, snarled in frustration. He managed to recover just enough to send a desperate psychic command to his remaining forces. "Retreat, regroup, we will return." With a final, chilling glare at Lyra and Jaxson, he melted into the shadows, his forces following, leaving behind a trail of bitterness and grudging respect. Rorik, battered and bruised, managed to push himself up, his eyes filled with a cold, murderous intent as he looked at Lyra. "This is not over, Agent Delta," he rasped, before retreating into the forest, leaving the field to the victors. The Moonwood Pack roared in triumph, a joyous, unified howl that reverberated through the trees. They had won. They had defended their home, not just with their strength, but with their spirit. Lyra collapsed to her knees, utterly drained, but a triumphant smile touched her lips. Jaxson was immediately by her side, pulling her into his arms, his strong body a comforting shield. He kissed her forehead, his silver eyes filled with an overwhelming pride and love. "My Luna," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You saved us all. You saved me." Lyra leaned into him, feeling the profound peace settle over her. The battle was won. Her past had been confronted, and in choosing him, in choosing her true destiny, she had found not only her place, but her power. She was no longer just an assassin. She was Lyra, the Luna of the Moonwood Pack, and Jackson's fated mate, her blade forever sheathed, her heart forever bound to the Alpha she was born to love, and now, finally, free to live for. The aftermath of the battle was a blend of somber recovery and joyous celebration. The Moonwood Pack had sustained injuries, but their spirits were unbroken. Healers worked tirelessly, and Lyra, though physically and spiritually drained from her prolonged use of the lunar aura, dedicated herself to assisting them. She moved among the wounded, her touch gentle, her presence a comforting balm that soothed their pain and hastened their recovery. The pack members, who had once eyed her with suspicion, now looked at her with a profound sense of gratitude and admiration. Her courage, her unwavering defense against Valerius's insidious magic, had solidified her place as their Luna, not just by bond, but by action. The immediate threat from the Shadow Pack had receded, but Jaxson and the Council knew this was merely a temporary reprieve. Valerius was not one to accept defeat. His retreat was strategic, not a surrender. "They will return," Jaxson stated during a council meeting, his voice grim. "Valerius will seek to understand Lyra's power, to counter it. We must be prepared for a deeper, more insidious attack next time." Lyra nodded, her own senses already attuned to the lingering threat. "He recognized the nature of the bond, Jaxson. He knows it amplifies my lunar aura. He will try to sever it or corrupt it." The thought sent a chill down her spine. The bond was her lifeline, her truth. The Council, now fully trusting Lyra, began to implement strategies based on her intimate knowledge of the Shadow Pack. They strengthened their spiritual defenses, enhanced training for their warriors, and began to forge stronger alliances with the northern packs who had witnessed Lyra's power at the gathering. Corvus, though still an enigma, maintained a wary respect, knowing Lyra's abilities could counteract his own. Lyra's probationary status quietly faded. The pack's acceptance was palpable. She was no longer just Jackson's fated mate. She was their Luna, a vital part of their community. Her days were now filled with the fulfilling duties of a Luna, mediating disputes, guiding the young, tending to the elders, and participating in pack rituals. The transformation from assassin to Luna was complete, yet the echoes of her past, the rigorous training, the cold discipline, now served a new, noble purpose. Her relationship with Jaxson deepened into a profound, unwavering love. He was not just her alpha and her mate. He was her confidant, her protector, the unwavering light that had pulled her from the darkness. Their bond, tested in the crucible of betrayal and battle, had emerged stronger, a testament to its undeniable truth. Their nights were filled with a quiet intimacy, a shared understanding that transcended words. Lyra found a solace in his arms she had never known possible, a sense of home that resonated to her very soul. One crisp autumn morning, a scout returned from a far-off border, his face grim. "Alpha! Luna!" he gasped, his chest heaving. A message from the Forbidden Lands, from Jackson's brother, Cale. Lyra's breath hitched. Cale. She had known Jaxson had a brother, banished years ago for a brutal act of defiance against their father, the previous Alpha. Cale was a shadow from Jackson's past, a source of quiet pain and regret. "Cale?" Jackson's voice was strained, a mixture of shock and apprehension. "What message?" He says he has information about Valerius," the scout replied, his eyes wide. He says he knows Valerius's ultimate weakness, and he wants to parley. He offers to reveal everything in exchange for his return to the Moonwood Pack. A collective gasp went through the council. Cale's return? After his banishment? It was an unprecedented proposition, fraught with emotional and political complications. Jaxson's face was a mask of conflict. His brother, a potential ally against Valerius, but also a dangerous, unpredictable element. He chose his path, Alpha, Torvin said, his voice cautious. His banishment was just. He betrayed your father. But if he holds the key to defeating Valerius, Lyra mused, her mind racing. The Shadow Pack was a formidable threat. Any advantage they could gain was crucial. And Cale, banished to the Forbidden Lands, would have had ample opportunity to learn about the dark dealings of rogue wolves and hidden powers. It could be a trap, the High Priestess warned, her eyes filled with ancient caution. A trick from Valerius himself. Or it could be our only chance, Lyra countered, meeting Jaxson's gaze. He is your blood, Jaxson. Perhaps in the Forbidden Lands, he saw the true nature of Valerius's darkness and recognizes the greater threat. We need to know what he knows. Jaxson looked at Lyra, a silent question passing between them. He trusted her judgment, her intuition. The Luna's insight was invaluable. After much deliberation, a dangerous decision was made. Jaxson, Lyra, and a small, trusted contingent of warriors would meet Cale at a neutral point on the edge of the Forbidden Lands. It was a perilous journey into the unknown, to meet a banished brother with a history of betrayal, all for the sake of uncovering a weakness in their most dangerous enemy. Lyra felt a strange mix of apprehension and hope. Her own past had been defined by betrayal and redemption. Perhaps Cale, too, had walked a similar path. The fate of the Moonwood Pack and their ability to finally defeat the Shadow Pack now rested on this perilous gamble, on the word of a banished brother, and on the strength of a bond that had defied every expectation. The threads of destiny were weaving a complex pattern, drawing them deeper into a world of hidden truths and perilous choices. The journey to the edge of the Forbidden Lands was shrouded in an uneasy silence. The familiar comfort of the Moonwood territory slowly gave way to a stark, untamed wilderness. The trees grew gnarled and twisted, their branches reaching like skeletal fingers, and the air hummed with a primal energy that felt both ancient and unsettling. Lyra rode aside Jaxson, her senses on high alert, her lunar aura a constant, low thrum, subtly probing the wild lands around them. Torvin and a handful of the most trusted Moonwood warriors formed their small, vigilant escort. Jaxson was uncharacteristically quiet, his face etched with a mixture of apprehension and a deep-seated pain. Cale, his banished brother, was a wound he rarely acknowledged, a past he had consciously tried to seal away. Lyra felt his turmoil through their bond, a raw vulnerability that strengthened her resolve to support him. They reached the designated meeting point, a desolate, windswept ridge overlooking a vast, mist-shrouded valley. The sky was heavy with bruised clouds, casting the landscape in a sombre grey. They waited, their wolves restless, their senses strained for any sign of Cale. Hours passed, the silence broken only by the mournful cry of a distant raptor. Just as doubts began to creep in, a lone figure emerged from the swirling mists of the valley floor. He moved with a quiet, dangerous grace, a powerful wolf whose silhouette was instantly recognizable. Kale. He was older now, his features etched with the harshness of exile, his eyes holding a depth of sorrow and experience that had not been there in the youthful memories Jaxson held. His fur, once a vibrant reddish-brown, was now streaked with grey, and his stance, while powerful, held a hint of weariness. Kale approached cautiously, his gaze scanning their small group, his eyes lingering for a long moment on Lyra, a flicker of surprise and assessment in their depths. Then, his eyes locked with Jackson's, and the air crackled with a silent, profound tension. Brothers, reunited by circumstance, separated by years of bitter history. Jaxson! Kale's voice was raspy, unused to extended conversation, but held an undeniable undercurrent of respect. He didn't use his alpha title, a subtle acknowledgement of his banished status. Kale, Jaxson replied, his voice strained, a raw edge to it. You sent a message. I did, Kale confirmed, his gaze still fixed on his brother. I have information about Valerius, information that could save your pack, but first, my terms. He looked pointedly at Lyra. Who is this female, and why does her essence hum with the strength of a Luna? Jaxson stepped forward, subtly positioning himself between Kale and Lyra, a protective gesture. This is Lyra, he stated, his voice firm, filled with quiet pride. My fated mate, and the Luna of the Moonwood Pack. He then briefly, succinctly, explained Lyra's past, her mission, her choice, and her redemption, omitting none of the painful details. Kale listened, his expression unreadable, but a flicker of astonishment crossed his face. He looked at Lyra with newfound respect, a flicker of something akin to recognition in his eyes. An assassin turned Luna, he murmured, a faint, humorless smile touching his lips. The goddess truly has a strange sense of humour, or perhaps a profound plan. What are your terms, Kale? Jaxson pressed, cutting to the chase. My banishment lifted, Kale replied, his voice steady. Full reinstatement into the Moonwood Pack, my freedom, and a place to finally rest after years in the wilderness. Torvin immediately bristled. Alpha, his crines. Silence, Torvin, Jaxson commanded, his gaze never leaving Kale's. He knew the weight of this decision. To lift Kale's banishment was to challenge deeply held traditions, to risk internal dissent. But the threat of Valerius was too great to ignore. You speak of Valerius's weakness, Jaxson continued, his eyes narrowed. Prove it. Tell us what you know. Then, the council will decide your fate. Kale hesitated, his gaze sweeping over the grim faces of the Moonwood warriors. He knew the risk he was taking. His life was in their hands. Valerius, he is obsessed with ancient power, Kale finally began, his voice low and urgent, drawing them closer, beyond what any living wolf has seen. He seeks to control the very essence of the spirit realm, to twist it to his will. Not just psychic manipulation, but a deeper, darker magic. He has been searching for an ancient artifact, a relic of primal power, hidden for centuries. Lyra's lunar aura pulsed, a warning, This resonated with the faint, unsettling aura she had felt from Valerius, the one that had seemed to drain energy. The heartstone of the ancients. Cale continued, his eyes dark with the memory of its legend. It is said to be a relic of the first shifters, capable of amplifying and corrupting spiritual energy. If Valerius obtains it, he could wield immense, destructive power. He could sever pack bonds, drain life force, corrupt the very land. And he plans to use it to perform a ritual during the next solar eclipse, to bind all the packs in the region to his will. A collective gasp went through the Moonwood contingent. A solar eclipse, the ultimate affront to the moon goddess, a time of darkness and vulnerability. "Where is it?" Lyra demanded, her voice sharp with urgency. Cale hesitated, then looked directly at Jaxson. "It is hidden in the Whispering Caves, deep within the Forbidden Lands. A place of ancient trials and powerful magic. A place I have spent years observing, knowing what Valerius sought. And its weakness," Jaxson pressed, his voice tight. "The Heartstone is powerful, but it is also unstable," Cale explained, his voice grim. "It can only be controlled by a spirit of absolute purity and balance. Anyone else who attempts to wield its full power will be consumed by it, corrupted, twisted beyond recognition. Valerius, for all his dark power, lacks that purity. He seeks to control it through force, through his twisted magic. But if the ritual is interrupted, if the Heartstone is exposed to a spirit of true light at the moment of the eclipse, its power can be turned against him, shattering his control and potentially destroying him." He looked at Lyra, his eyes holding a new understanding, a dawning realization. "A spirit of true light," he repeated, his gaze unwavering. "A Luna, strong and pure, uncorrupted by darkness." Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. The weight of this revelation was immense. She, the former assassin, was now the key to defeating Valerius, to countering the Heartstone. Her lunar aura, her purified spirit, was their only hope. Jaxson looked at Cale, a profound sorrow in his eyes, but also a dawning hope. "You risked everything to bring us this, Cale. This information, it is invaluable." He paused, then made his decision, a heavy burden lifted from his shoulders. "The Council will hear your plea, and I believe, after this, they will grant your return." He extended his hand to Cale, a gesture of reconciliation, of forgiveness. Cale grasped his brother's hand, his eyes moist with unspoken emotion. The old wounds had not vanished, but a fragile bridge of trust had been built between them, forged in the face of a greater enemy. Lyra watched them, a quiet strength settling within her. The assassin's blade, buried in the Moonwood soil, was a symbol of her past. Her lunar aura, now a beacon of light, was her future. They had an ancient evil to face, a powerful artifact to retrieve, and a solar eclipse that threatened to plunge the world into darkness. But now they had Cale, his knowledge, and the combined strength of their united pack. The true battle was yet to come, and Lyra knew, with a chilling certainty, that the path to peace would demand everything they had.